Welcome, BJ Fogg, to the program. I'm so excited to have you on board this year.
Well, thank you for inviting me. You did a good job of rounding me up, I must say.
I'm very persistent. So, BJ, I just want to dive straight into talking about something that I know you're extremely passionate about and have pretty much dedicated your work and your life to, which is behaviour change.
Right.
So I wonder if you could just start off by giving us a small context of what you're focused on at the moment, where you
Yeah.
work, just
Yeah,
so
so I split my time between Stanford University and then doing things outside the university. And all of it has to do with how do you create systems that help people change their behavior. And for the mostly it's about helping people do things they already want to do, like be healthier, save more money, help save the environment, and so on. And so I have a foot in both worlds, academic and industry, and that's a careful, difficult balance, but I think it pushes me and it makes me better in each world.
okay. So tell me a little bit about, the way I came upon you was about 4 years ago. I did this fantastic program that you created called Tiny Habits.
Uh,
Can you tell us a little bit about the program and then specifically a little bit about the idea of how to create new habits? Just
yeah.
anything that comes to mind that seems important about that.
The best way to learn about tiny habits is to go through the 5-day session that's free, and it's about 40 minutes of time total, start to finish. But to summarize, what you do is you take some habit that you want and you make it really, really small. You make it into a little tiny behavior. And my favorite to talk about is like flossing one
Love
tooth.
it. Love it.
And then you find where that fits naturally in your day. So you attach it, we call it anchoring it. You anchor it right behind a habit you already have. So flossing one tooth naturally comes, at least for me, right after I brush. And so you make it really small, you find where it fits naturally, and then when you do the tiny behavior, you celebrate it. And by that, I mean you fire off a positive emotion inside yourself right away. And part of the method is it's really a method where it's trial and error. It's not at all expected that you'll get it right out of the gate. And so revision is part of the method. So if it doesn't go as you intend, it's not like you failed. It's great. Just redesign, either pick a different tiny behavior or find a new spot for it. You're, it's more of a design issue and not at all a motivation or willpower issue.
That's fantastic because I think a lot of people, that's a really big obstacle that they just feel like they've failed. Whereas you're kind of coming with this creative approach of like redesign the way you're doing it, like experiment with a different anchor point or change the duration of the activity or something like that. Is that what you mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and what I probably don't do a good enough job explaining, at least in the initial program, when we train coaches and stuff, is as clear as it's really, I think of it as like goofing around. You're goofing around with your behavior, you're being playful, and you're trying to figure out what works. Just like if you had a new office to decorate, you
Yeah.
might go in and put this here and this there, and you'd kind of just play around and
Yeah.
see what works.
Yeah.
It's exactly the mindset that I think people should bring to creating new habits.
So that playful mindset. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Would you mind sharing a habit or behavior change that you personally have? I mean, there must be
Uh,
hundreds, but
I just look around me. Okay, I have the habit of always putting a glass of water on the desk, and as soon as it empties, I refill it. I've been working on the habit of usually when I'm on the phone for the last 3 or 4 months, I'm practicing my whiteboarding. So my handwriting on whiteboards is way, way, way better now. I'm standing up right now, so I have a stand-up desk. Whenever I'm on the phone, I'm always walking around, and actually I'm doing little exercises. Underneath my desk, I have this that I balance on. Um,
and
I
are
put,
these are these sort of all habits that you've slowly instigated, so you don't kind of do them all at once, like you've put in one at a time.
right. Well, you can do more than one at once,
Yeah.
but it's not like I created 500 tiny habits at once.
Yeah.
Just like you wouldn't decorate 500 rooms at once,
Yeah.
right? So you can do a few at once, and I mean, I just look around and the things around me and what I do day in day out is is really, really shaped by me making these very small changes.
Yeah.
And if something didn't work, I revised it.
Mm-hmm.
And if something still didn't work, I just questioned whether I even really wanted that habit. And
Yeah.
that's one of the things is like, hey, if you don't really want the habit, don't waste your time on it. Focus on things you actually want.
Yeah. So that motivation piece, like actually reflecting on, am I actually?
Yeah, yeah, and the difference between I think tiny habits and the traditional approaches to behavior change is you're tapping into motivation you already have, and you're not trying to amp up motivation artificially.
Mm-hmm.
So from the outset, you're selecting behaviors that you want in your life,
Mm-hmm.
not, oh, I'm gonna force myself to do something by, you know, putting money in some
Yeah.
cause I don't like or
Ku
having like
Klux, yeah, supporting the Ku Klux Klan if I don't achieve
yeah.
this habit.
You
Yeah.
know, those are ways to manipulate your behavior in the short term. But I think when it comes to long-term habits, all habits form in the same way. They all start small. They all find a place in your life where they fit naturally. And as they're nurtured, they grow to their natural size. I think of it, I mean, the plant metaphor in habits is very, very fitting.
The plant metaphor in what respect?
Well, you don't, you start a plant out small and you
Yeah.
nurture it and you let it take roots, and then it grows to its natural size. This is an African violet. It's never going to get bigger than this. Flossing all my teeth is not going to be flossing my teeth 100 times a day.
Yeah.
Though some habits, like exercising for an hour a day,
Yeah.
you start those small and you grow them. If I keep extending the plant metaphor, if you don't start with a full-grown tree and try to plant it in your front yard.
Right.
Yes, you can make it happen,
Right.
but it takes a lot of care and feeding and a lot of attention, and the chances of it dying are higher than if you just started it out smaller, found a good spot, and nurtured it.
Yeah.
And so I think of habits very much in terms of like plants. You plant a tiny seed in the right spot,
Yeah.
and you keep it nurtured, and it grows without coaxing if it's in the right spot and it's a good seed.
Yeah. Okay. So this is like coming back to the flossing. That's why you talk about like floss one tooth. That would be like the seed.
Yeah.
And then
Simple.
it grows to expand to all the teeth.
Yeah, what happens is naturally you start doing more and more,
Yeah.
and you don't have to force yourself to do it. It's just sort of a natural process. And so let me put it this way, even today, so I love flossing. I didn't used to be like
You
5
can
years
tell
old.
you have very nice teeth. Yeah.
And my dentist is very happy about that. I think of it this way. Let's say there's a day I'm really, really busy and somebody's waiting for me outside the house and they're taking me somewhere and I don't have time to floss all my teeth. I now just floss one tooth and I think I'm keeping the tiny habit alive. In other words, I think of it as a little plant that I'm not neglecting. I'm keeping that little thing alive. And that's all you have to do is keep that little thing alive, because then it has the potential to grow big. Yeah.
That's a really helpful point, because I'm just thinking about applying that to many listeners who are trying to create potentially a habit this month of meditation, right? And it's really hard. And it's only 10 minutes that they're trying to commit to, but it's still really hard sometimes to find 10 minutes in your day. So in this month, like applying that theory, you could then suggest to people that if they can't on one day do that 10 minutes, sit for 1 minute or even 30 seconds and just practice the breathing meditation so that you're keeping that habit alive.
Keep it alive, even if it's 10 seconds. It's like, okay, you did it.
Yeah.
And that's the right way to think about it. And be happy that you did it for 10 seconds or 30 seconds. Don't say, oh, I didn't do the full thing. Instead, recognize that you succeeded in doing the behavior, however small it might have been.
Okay.
And don't get down on yourself if you didn't do like exercise for an hour or 10 minutes, meditation, what have you. You always look at the upside.
Okay, that's a really important point. And so from your research, have you got a sense of like the most common obstacle that people, of those different points you come across, like what do you notice people really, that gets in the way for people of this behavior change?
People in the moment that they decide, hey, I'm going to get fitter, or I'm going to meditate, I'm going to save more money, their motivation level is really high.
Yeah.
And so they're very feeling at that moment capable of doing big things. And that is true. In that moment, they're capable of doing big things, but motivation goes up and down over time.
Mm-hmm.
So the problem is people do not account for the fact that their motivation is going to sag, or they're going to have a competing motivation and they won't be able to do the big thing. So people tend to like sign themselves up for these huge dramatic changes.
Yeah.
And though it's never worked for them before.
Yeah.
Right, the evidence. And it's very hard to make a very big dramatic change. There are ways to do it, but it's the traditional programs of doing it really don't help you do it. You pretty much set yourself up for failure if you say, okay, I'm going to exercise an hour a day and I'm going to eat completely differently and I'm going to go to bed at 7 at night, all that stuff all at once. It's like trying to transplant a bunch of fully grown trees in your front yard.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can make it happen, but it's going to be a ton of work. And if you ever get distracted, those things are probably going to die. So the mistake is assuming that you can somehow just muscle your way or motivate your way to a big dramatic change in your life and not recognizing the fact that it's never really worked for you before.
Right. Okay. So the big mistake is around sort of unrealistic expectations and a misunderstanding of actually how behavior change happens. Like it's not relying upon motivation. It's actually designing it so that it doesn't rely upon motivation.
Exactly. That's a great way to put it. Now, if you do need to change your behavior dramatically or in a big way, there's a way to do it, but it requires you redesigning your environment. The things around you, the people around you, the culture around you. And if you can do that, you can make big changes and have them stick, but that's really hard to do. It might mean new friends, it might mean a new job, it might mean you move to a completely new place. So it's not impossible, but when you change in small ways, you naturally evolve your environment. You tweak it, like I've shown you some things in my environment.
Yeah.
That help support that ongoing behavior change.
Right.
And you don't have to like get rid of all your friends or get a new job. Or
right. That kind of happens. It happens automatically over a slower period of time.
Little by little, right? You evolve it. It's like you're tweaking your environment as you're making these small changes.
Yeah. Okay. I'm aware of the time. Have you got a few more minutes?
Sure.
Okay. Just the piece about giving yourself positive recognition, I found that really interesting. Can you just speak a little bit more about that? Like, how did you come to that? How did you discover that that was an important part of the process?
I think it was a little by accident. Here's how it happened. So back when I was playing around with tiny habits, I also had some real big challenges on projects I was working on. And my days were really, really hard. And so I remember getting up in the morning and flossing one tooth and thinking, good for me. If everything else in my day goes crazy, I have succeeded on this one thing, victory. So I started, I flossed one tooth and I was like, okay, I got one thing right today. Everything else fall apart. And then I recognized the power of that. And then I started purposely applying it to other habits I wanted to create where again, we call it celebration, but essentially you're firing off a positive emotion inside yourself, either by going, yes, or awesome, or good for me, or thinking of a song or a person, some way to fire off a positive emotion. And that makes you want to do the behavior again.
Okay, powerful. So just in summary then, for the people because they're at the beginning of this month, let's say, and they're trying to, they're hoping, I've signed up to this thing, I'm going to practice 10 minutes of meditation a day. So so just in summary, going along those points, it would be, what would you advise them?
Well, have fun, be playful, have compassion on yourself. And if it doesn't work, tweak it and just keep going. Okay? Nobody gets it right. I'll walk that back. It's very hard to get it all right the first time. And the way you get it right is just diving in and trying and revising as you go along.
Yeah. Okay, great.
So just keep going and don't get down on yourself and recognize all the upside, all the ways you are succeeding.
Yeah.
and just keep going.
So the victory moment is crucial. Like, even if it's
Yeah.
just doing 10 seconds of meditation one day to keep that plant nurtured. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
In fact, for me, that's how it worked. Meditation was one of the hardest habits I've ever worked on. And it honestly took me about a year and a half to find where it fit in my day. I tried all sorts of spots. And, I, like probably you and a lot of people watching this, we had really crazy busy days. And it just wasn't fitting anywhere. And I finally found where it fit. And it comes in my day right after I empty my spam folder in the morning. So I have a way of going through and clearing out all the spam and making sure there's not something important. That's the moment of kind of calm and clarity and refresh where meditation fit. And I didn't do a lot, but I did it pretty much every day. And then I started thinking to myself, oh, I'm the kind of person who meditates.
Yeah.
And then with that kind of identity and that kind of rooted habit, that's been able to grow into a much bigger behavior around meditation.
That's a great story. I wasn't even aware that you were a meditator. So bonus. And
Yeah, I'm doing a lot longer sessions or more throughout the day now, but at the beginning it was just, where does this fit? And it just took a long time to find it. But then once it was there, I was like, ah, that totally works. I still
yeah,
didn't have 20 minutes at that moment to do it, but I
yeah.
did some every single day.
So that
Yeah.
might be also a really helpful gift for the listeners, just to ask the question, and maybe that's all they might achieve in the month. Like, where does this fit? And like
Yeah.
experimenting with that for the month. Yeah.
Yeah, and then watch how it naturally grows or generalizes. Let's give an example. Last night, it's probably 2 in the morning. I woke up and I was kind of restless. And I was like, okay, I can get up and read. And I was like, no, just meditate for about 10 minutes. And if you're still restless, get up. Just meditate, calm your mind. And that was awesome. I was calm and I was able to go back to sleep. So if I didn't have sort of the skill or the
Mm-hmm.
confidence that I could meditate, I would have never in that, I don't want to meditate every
Yeah.
morning at 2 a.m.
Yeah.
But it was a resource available to me, a skill that I had that I could apply to get better sleep and go
Right.
back to bed rather than have my mind spin more and more and more.
Yeah. So that generalizing. So you started with this habit, and then it kind of naturally arises in moments that could be helpful. Yeah.
Yeah, and so now I am meditating at, there's a certain time where I always meditate, and then other times during the day, sort of on demand, when
Yeah.
I feel like I need it, or it's like, oh, I got 15 minutes free. Let me sit
Yeah.
here and,
Yeah.
run a session.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love the metaphor actually of doing it after emptying the spam folder, because it's kind of like you're emptying the junk out of your email, and then you're
Uh,
kind of offering space to your mind to actually let that settle and get rid of the junk of the mind. Yeah.
yeah, and that's why it felt like that was kind of obvious to me, but it took a long time to find that spot. And
Yeah.
yeah, that's exactly how it feels.
Yeah. Thank you so much, BJ. This has been fantastic. I feel like I could ask you questions and explore for hours more. But for the listeners that feel the same way, where can they find out more about your fascinating research or anything else that you have to offer?
I've got a lot of websites, probably too many, but if you go to bjfogg.org, that's
Mm-hmm.
kind of
Mm-hmm.
I link to a bunch of my websites. If you want to go to Tiny Habits and do that, just go to tinyhabits.com and sign up for the 5-day program.
Yeah.
Or just search BJ Fogg on Google.
Yeah, great. Okay,
Yeah.
that's fantastic. And was there anything else that we didn't cover that you feel compelled to share, or about your
Hmm.
work or behavior change?
No, I loved your questions and I loved how you built on. So, no, thank you for having me. Thank you. Thank you for doing this. Good for you for raising awareness and getting people more mindful and happier.
Great. Thank you. And thank
Yeah.
you so much for your time.
See ya.